Hello everyone, welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I am Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thank you for joining us. Hey, the issue we're going to be talking about today has garnered a lot of attention in the media, and I think it's a good segue to talk about gun safety. So let's talk today about what the Alec Baldwin incident can teach all of us about gun safety. Okay, before we get too far down the road, you know the drill. If you like this video, go ahead and click that like button down below. If you want to stay apprised of issues related to your Second Amendment rights, go ahead and click the subscribe button down below. Click the little bell logo if you want to be notified of new videos. Most importantly, keep the comments coming, keep the discussion going. That's how this algorithm here at YouTube will get our videos out to more lawful and responsible gun owners like yourself. Okay, so the incident that we're going to be talking about today, and everyone should be familiar with it, it's been all over the news, was the tragic and accidental shooting of a cinematographer on the set of the movie Rust at the hands of Alec Baldwin. Now, without getting too far into the details, what we know is that they were filming a scene in which firearms were going to be used. The gun was handed to Mr. Baldwin and told that it was cold, and at some point the firearm accidentally discharged. Apparently it was not cold, a terminology I'm not too familiar with. But it did discharge around, it struck the director, and unfortunately hit the cinematographer and killed her. Now, while there are experts on both sides of the fence that are speculating and coming up with their own theories as to who may or who may not be criminally or civilly liable, the purpose of this video is not to speculate on any of that. And more importantly, the purpose of this video is not to implicate Alec Baldwin in any particular wrongdoing. I think that there are plenty of pundits out here on YouTube that will have their day with Mr. Baldwin, and I recognize that he and many of the folks in Hollywood who like to stick their necks out and engage in political discourse with the rest of us do subject themselves to a higher level of scrutiny. But the purpose of this video here is not to criticize Mr. Baldwin in any way, except for one thing, which is let's talk today about the 4 universal rules of gun safety. Because the bottom line is this: no matter who's at fault here, whether it's one of the people on the set production, it's the special effects guy, it's the guy who's in charge of having armament and armory on the movie set, whoever may be responsible leading up to someone handing this firearm to Alec Baldwin, the bottom line is this: had Mr. Baldwin followed the 4 universal rules of gun safety, we probably wouldn't be talking about this situation. So let's talk about those in order. Rule number 1, treat every firearm as if it is loaded. Now, this realization alone probably would solve 90% of the problems that we have with firearms, and certainly in this situation. Despite the fact that the firearm was handed to Mr. Baldwin and he was told that the gun was cold, I believe that the lawful and responsible gun owner would still treat that firearm as if it is loaded. The lawful and responsible gun owner would check and ensure that the firearm is unloaded, and even after making sure that the firearm is not loaded, would still treat it as if it was. Rule number 2, never point the muzzle at anything that you are not willing to destroy. Now, this is a real common problem with people who are new to firearms. If you go to ranges, one of the things that we will often do in trying to train proper firearm safety is put laser bore sighters into firearms. And just watch the individual who's not accustomed to firearms load and unload, take it in or out of the case, and watch where that laser goes to see how many times they are flagging another person with the muzzle. It is imperative that if you're going to be the lawful and responsible gun owner, that you never point the muzzle at anything that you are not willing to destroy. Rule number 3, keep your finger off the trigger and do not place it there until your target is in sights and if you have made the decision to shoot. Let's say that again. Keep your finger off the trigger until you have your target in sights and you have made the decision to shoot. Then and only then should the finger be moved to the trigger. Now, with all due respect to Mr. Baldwin, and I was not there, and I'm trying to speculate what's happening, we know that the first 3 rules of basic firearm safety here were compromised or not followed. Number 1, the firearm was not treated as though it was loaded. Number 2, the muzzle was obviously pointed in an improper direction. And number 3, the firearm discharged, and I'm going to assume that was due to the depression of a trigger. Firearms, contrary to how some believe, do not go off on their own. There are certain firearms that have, most admittedly, failed drop tests, but firearms just sitting in your hand or laying there on a table do not automatically discharge. And finally, rule number 4. Know exactly what your target is and what lies beyond it. And this is very important when we go to outdoor shooting ranges, or if we're shooting recreationally out on forestry land, that we ensure that at all times we absolutely positively know what lies behind the target. We are responsible for every round we discharge, and we are responsible for the impact of that round regardless of what our intent was. So what can this terrible incident involving Alec Baldwin on that set really teach all of us? Well, it could teach all of us this: that had the basic rules of firearm safety, the 4 basic rules of firearm safety, been followed, this tragedy in all likelihood would have never occurred. Number 1, always treat the gun as though it's loaded. Number 2, never point the muzzle at anything that you're not willing to destroy. Number 3, keep your finger off the trigger and do not place it there until your target is in sight and you have made the decision to shoot. And finally, know where your target lies, and also know everything that lies beyond it. Listen, you may have more questions about universal firearm rules or anything related to your Second Amendment rights, and if you do, don't ever hesitate to contact us at WashingtonGunLaw.com, or of course, you can call us directly at 425-765-0487. Listen, part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we preach all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is not only to follow the universal rules of firearm safety, but to know what the law is in every situation and how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching, and stay safe.